What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show, joined once again by Ryan Davenport. We're going to recap this North Texas SMU game, but before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. Ryan, I appreciate it. I know it's late on a Monday. Just jumping right into things. Defensively first, what are your thoughts on the SMU game?
Well, more of the same. I think it's tough when we go out there and we are already beat by alignment. We talked a little bit pre-tape about this. I don't know if it's the 3-3-5 scheme or what it is, but we end up, typically they're going to run trips to the boundary, and then we're gonna have our, I guess that's our free safety sitting 12 yards off the ball. We'll play coverage on the two outside receivers. I guess we're walking out a linebacker, but it looks like the free safety is standing 12 yards off the ball. Well, one of two things is happening. They're either running little bubble screens to those guys and getting 12 yards because there's nobody there, or they're running the opposite direction and we can't stop the run. So we're just sitting there, in my opinion, at a disadvantage before the ball's ever even snapped. So I don't really know what the solution is there. And then when we are in position, we seem to be missing a lot of tackles. I think we've got to consider the defense and just the strategy here, because every team is going to step up and just say, well, if you're going to give me 12 yards, I'm going to run the ball. 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 And we gave up 200-yard rushers for SMU. Two different guys went over 100 yards on the ground. We're not going to win a lot of games that way. So I don't know where we go.
Yeah, and obviously, neither one of us, especially myself. You actually have a little experience with your son coaching, but the closest thing I've ever done to coaching is legitimately a video game, and so I'm not obviously these guys. I know our defense is I think last in the nation, but they're professional coaches. I mean, they know ball. They're D1 coaches. They've made it. They've climbed the ladder to a really high level. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing. They do. But I say all this because I want to get your thoughts on this. From the press box, you see, and I've seen this, man, more than a handful of times this season, but just based off alignment, like what you just said, is that, wow, this part of the right side, looks really open, or whatever it may be. It just looks really open. And again, a handful of times, that place that looks open, they run the ball to that area and they're ripping 12, 15 yards, maybe 20 yards. What do you think the defensive coaches are seeing? Like, okay, like we're in a play and we're scheming this to stop, X, whatever X is, a pass or whatever. But do you think they're just gambling that they're not going to call a play to the weak zone of this defense? Or do you think
No,
it's just totally
you
catching them off guard?
look, in today's game, you have to assume that the other team is going to see your alignment and they're going to be trying to put themselves in the best offensive play call to beat whatever you line up in. So you have to, as a defensive coach, you have to assume that. And what I struggle with is when I coach my son, I feel like I can work with them on technique and tackling and things like that. And then when they get in the game, they have to do those things. I don't have any control over it. But what I do have control over as a coach is what I'm calling, the plays I'm calling, the defensive schemes I'm calling, the alignment that I'm putting them in. And so when we look at something, we say we're misaligned, or we're not set up correctly, or we have a bad defensive scheme or a bad play call. That is coaching. That's not, I mean, the missed tackles, that's on the players. I mean, we can say the coaches could be practicing tackles more, but the kids have to tackle when they're in the game, right? The coaches can't go tackle for them. But alignment is a coaching situation. And from my perspective as a coach, I always say, okay, I don't want to be, we may lose this game, but I want to try to put the kids in the best position to win. And what I'm concerned about is that we're going out there not putting ourselves in the best position to win. And that's what we're seeing week in and week out is, 300 yards on the ground here. this week, 300 last week, 300 the week before that. 300, I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. So at some point we have to say, what are we doing? Now, my assumption is that their alignment and their strategy is based on, I don't know, being able to out athlete the kids that you're playing or being better, more dominant physically. And we're not. So maybe there's a hope that as we recruit better players and we get further down the road, we're going to be in a position to run these same things and be successful. But right now it's pretty rough out there.
And that was kind of my next question for you as far as this defense beyond this year. And, if I'm hedging my bets, I think Caponi's going to be back. I just think he is. So do you think if they can really get some guys, maybe via JUCO, the portal, whatever it may be, guys that can hopefully step in and play now, that, this defense, will take a big step, as in, maybe the low 90s? Do you think that's plausible? Do you think that's something that you anticipate happening if they get, said recruits?
Well, you got to think, going out with a 3-win season right now, even if we end up with 4 wins or 5 wins, still having a losing record is not going to help you in the recruiting game. So that already is putting you behind the 8 ball when you go say, well, we're going to go get some big time players. Well, you're not if you're not winning. So that's a tough thing to start with. Then you say, okay, if I look back at history, UNT has just not been able to go get just marquee world beater type talent on the defensive side. We've had some great defensive players, but they're normally 1s or 2s, from Mean Joe Green to Booger Kennedy, to some of the different guys that played
Craig
linebacker here.
Robertson, yeah.
Craig Robertson was here. Helped me out with a couple other ones. Katie Davis, some of the more recent guys. So we've had great defensive players, but we don't normally have a collective great defense across the board. We have a handful of standouts, and that's kind of our go-to. So defense can be good with a lot of role players, but you got to put them in a position to be successful. And I think the 3-3-5. I played a 3-3-5. I don't like it as a defense. I think it always puts you in a bunch of space. You got to have great tacklers. We don't have them today, so we're really putting ourselves behind the 8 ball before we even start a snap of football. That's my 2 cents. It's obviously worked for Capone. It worked for them before. So I don't want to say it can't work. Obviously, if you're faster and quicker and you got guys that can tackle, it might work. And again, I think when we look at the air raid system, they're going down the road of we just have to outscore everybody and hold them to, if we can hold them to 25, we can score 40, we'll win. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like they're going towards right now. But, I don't, that's not that wouldn't be my strategy, but I'm not the coach. So yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, moving to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously Rodgers, probably Rodgers' worst game of his career here at North Texas. But what are your thoughts there offensively?
They started out well. I mean, we were in the game at halftime. I really liked the way the game started. I didn't think SMU was playing particularly a great game at the beginning of the game. I think it left us in position to be in the game the whole time in the first half. But then, like you alluded to, Rodgers came in and said and had some challenges. There was some ball security issues that we haven't seen out of him all season. He threw an interception. He had one fumble. He actually had a second fumble that ended up getting overturned, and it was a forward pass. But there was some ball security issues in the third quarter, and that just makes it difficult to win a game that way. I think that it was bound to happen. He's bound to have a bad game, not the best game. It wasn't even that bad of a game, just wasn't what we've been used to seeing out of him. So the one thing I've noticed with him, I think this is a typical issue with good quarterbacks is he holds the ball a long time. He doesn't know when to maybe throw it away or when to that he's maybe about to get sacked or something. The one turnover they got overturned. Uh, he was holding that ball a long time, and he was just luckily throwing it forward when he got hit. So, that's one that I think as he progresses, if he can think about, okay, how long do I have? How do I get that out in rhythm? How do I get that ball out quicker? Or if it's not there, I don't have to force it. There's great players, they want to make every play. Every play's got to be made. Well, maybe he should learn to take, what the defense is giving him, maybe throw it away every once in a while and be a little better shape.
Yeah. So kind of what you spoke on, obviously we're not going to have a winning record this season. It's just impossible. But, 3 or 5-7 is still a lot different than 3-9 as far as just optics looks, especially for us fans now. And being that, you've played, I don't remember the records of the teams that you were on when you were playing, but
They were all bad.
yeah. So yeah, I kind of thought so. But so as far as the players go, do you think it will be a challenge to get them up and ready for these next 2 games? Or do you think, they'll kind of have a similar mindset? Okay, we'd rather get 5 wins than 3 wins. But what are your thoughts there, just as a former player?
I mean, I think you want to go out and win. Football at this level is a business, and you are competing for a position. You're competing for playing time. You're competing to be back next year. So I mean, I think they'll play, and the 2 games left in the slate should be competitive games. They shouldn't be teams that just put it on us. That doesn't mean they won't. It just means they shouldn't be. So hopefully they can stay up. I do think late in the season, your body's tired. You've been beat up all year, especially when you have losing records. It can be difficult. I think Coach Morris has done a good job of keeping the guys in the games and keeping them ready to play. But we'll see. I think that's the coaching challenge he has for the next 2 games is, can he keep the guys playing to win a game in the last 2 games of the season when they're really not playing for anything anymore? I don't know. I hope to see it, but it's tough. It will be tough for them. They should want to do it, but that doesn't mean they ever. It definitely is difficult this time of year.
Right. So we're 2.5-point favorites as of Monday night for this Tulsa game, which is kind of odd.
Wow.
They're also a 3. I know they're also a 3-win team. So so take that
They
with a
played
grain of
Tulane tough this week. I mean, I know we
Yeah,
did
they
too,
did.
but
They
there
did.
was a
I feel like
tough.
Tulane's been playing with fire a lot.
They have
But
been.
yeah,
It's been tight for them.
yeah. So, but yes, they did, and Tulane is good. So it'll be interesting. I did a podcast prior to this podcast, and Miles mentioned this
Right.
stat. So if this is wrong, then blame Miles. But he brought up that they're 32nd in the nation in rushing, Tulsa. So assuming that stat is correct, does that concern you how much? And just kind of, what's a point prediction for Tulsa?
Oh man. Yes, of course it concerns me. I mean, we make every rushing attack look amazing, so this will be no exception. Point prediction, how about 42-45? Maybe we'll win one. I'll give us the win. But I think it'll be a high scoring affair. I think the only reason the SMU wasn't a high scoring affair is we started turning the ball over. If we had held on the ball, I think we would have had 38 points and it had been 38-45 or something like that, instead of 21-45.
Mhm.
So that would be what I would say.
You're the second person who's predicted 45-42 us. That's crazy. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe that's just trending. I think they struggle in the pass defense, Tulsa. So,
And that's
you
good
know,
for us.
yeah,
So
that is. But
hopefully some of those guys will have a big game. Macklin was held without a touchdown this week, so maybe he's due to have a big game, and maybe we get the ground game going too.
yeah. Well, Ryan, anything else we need to touch on before we hop off?
No, I think that's pretty much sums it up.
Yep. Yep. Well, all right. Well, on to Tulsa, I guess. Onward and upward. But as always, go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.